Okay.
Okay, well, before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land on which I'm hosting our webinar today. Sits on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, and that our water is sourced from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation. I'd like to introduce Barb. Barb Daniel began coaching in Halifax in 1975 while continuing to train as a competitive foil fencer. She competed in Nova Scotia at the Canada Games in Brandon in 1975 and Lethbridge in 1979. And over the years, she's founded 6 fencing clubs, most recently the Demalakis Club of Fredericton, from which she just retired. Congratulations, Barb. She has coached at Canada Games in 1991 and 1995 for Nova Scotia, and in 1993, 2003, 2007, and 2013 for New Brunswick. She served as National Women's Épée coach at the 1993 FISO Games in Buffalo, 1995 World Championships in the Netherlands, 1997 FISO Games in Sicily. And she was the weapon leader for the National Women's Épée team from 1997 to 2000 and was a team member of the 1994 Junior World Championships in Mexico, the 1999 World Championships in Seoul, and 2001 Junior World Championships in Poland. And she is currently the chair of the CFF Coaching Development Committee. So welcome, Barb. We're very excited on your session for coaches in fencing. Your pathway awaits. The description of the session is that we're going to get started as a fencing coach and continue on challenging but rewarding pathway to support fencing development in Canada. And the webinar will provide an overview of 4 current pathways in fencing and help participants gain access to a myriad of coaching opportunities to become passionate, confident coaches. Over to you, Barb.
Wow, that's a tall order. Actually, I don't feel that I need to speak in great depth about the opportunities, other than to really just say thank you to those of you who've shown interest here today, and to say that there are, I will be going through the formal pathway of certification from the National Coaching Certification Program. But in fact, I think of all the people that I know that have gotten involved in coaching, a lot of times you just get involved, sometimes just because it's needed, and you feel like, well, maybe I should step up because there's a need there, and there are many different ways to be learning. So this is the National Coaching Certification Program is one way, and I think the benefit of being able to say that you're certified can perhaps give some people confidence, or parents of young children, or other people confidence that you have actually undergone, or taken particular education and training, that you kind of know what you're doing. A big part of coaching as we move forward with the Coaching Association of Canada is, in fact, even though we all want to be technically as sound as possible, a huge part of moving forward as a coach is gaining confidence in how you work with people. So it's you're teaching fencing, but you're also teaching people how to fence, and so sort of the people skills are a really big part of the variety of things that are available through not just the Coaching Association of Canada, but a number of other organizations like Sport for Life, or there's like just, I'm not going to list them all, but there's just so many ways to learn. There are other countries that offer coaching development training camps, all these kinds of things. So just to not kind of focus just on getting certified, we're hoping that when you if you decide to get involved in the National Coaching Certification Program, that it's less about having a certificate than it is about sharing your own ideas with other people that are in the courses, and just learning as much as you can, and then trying it out. I know many of my years of coaching were just like trial and error, a lot of trial and error, trying one thing and then finding out, oh, that didn't seem to work, what should I change? So that's kind of just a basic intro. I'm going to share my screen with you to just go over more formally the National Coaching Certification Program. And I'm technologically not very capable, so I'm going to see if I can learn how to share this screen. Gary, I might need your help again. How do I?
No problem. If you go to the bottom bar on the Zoom screen, you'll see share screen, and it has a little arrow pointing up.
Okay, I think I've got it. There. Okay. Can everybody see this screen?
Yep.
Yes. Yep. Okay. So we've put together this kind of visual to show the various pathways. And I guess it's important for all of you, regardless of the amount of experience or lack of experience that you have right now. One of the things to think about is the kind or the sort of skill level of fencers. Do you want to be working with introducing fencing to people? So it's a very early introduction, initiation into fencing. Do you have a particular passion for working with competitive fencers? Do you really like the technical aspects and want to be more of an instructional type of coach that's really focused on technical, tactical development, but not necessarily, building competitors? So there's so many different ways that you can serve fencers in Canada, and there are fencers at all different levels. So as a coach, you want to hopefully feel that you've got the kind of training that you need for the fencers that you want to work with. So on the very left side of the model, you'll see that we've put in the different stages of fencer development, and these come from the Canadian Sport for Life long-term athlete development program. So there is an established model of fencer development, athlete development, that basically goes through the stages from initiation through learning the fundamentals of fencing, then learning how to train. And some people move to training to compete. Probably those of you who've been involved in fencing will know that some fencers just enjoy learning how to fence, but won't necessarily move on to competition. So understanding the group that you're working with, or helping them to make a decision as to whether they want to be competitive or just enjoy recreational fencing. And so these are the stages that are kind of recognized, not just in fencing, but in all sports in Canada, of the long-term development of an athlete. And then those are linked to the pathway that you might choose to be in terms of your coaching education. So the community instructor, which is the first pathway there, and the instructor beginner, both the community instructor, kind of the difference between community instructor and instructor beginner would be that the community instructor is probably kind of more repeating an introductory program, maybe a 10-week beginner program, and not really moving much beyond the initial introduction and initiation of fencers or new participants into fencing. Instructor beginner is, again, primarily working with fundamentals, but maybe a little bit longer term. So you could be in a situation where you can work with beginners until their skills are fairly, their basic skills are fairly well developed, and maybe you're handing them on to another coach in your club or moving on to another club. So that would be the instructor beginner. Instructor intermediate, you can see, is not developed yet, but from the feedback that we've been getting and the discussions that we have in our coaching development committee, we want, we recognize that perhaps there's not enough technical development work in the instructor beginner program, and it's a kind of a big jump to go from instructor beginner to then the only other thing is to become a competitive coach for competitors. Excuse me. So the instructor intermediate is for coaches who just feel like they want to keep really building higher level skills in their fencers, but not necessarily doing the coaching part that really pushes or works with competitive fencers. So that would be the instructor intermediate. And we haven't even started to build the content for that, but it's in the works. So we do have competition introduction and competition development for those coaches who are keen to build the competitive skills. So you're still working technical and tactical and physical skills and even some mental preparation skills. But here you get much more into mental preparation and yearly training plans and really looking at the type of training that will help people be as ready as possible to go into competitions. So both the competition introduction and competition development pathways are available now. We're just still developing and kind of testing out content. So I don't know how many of you noticed that we are having a competition development workshop. It's a kind of a pilot workshop in Alberta this summer. And if any of you felt that that would be where you would like to be, that you would be ready to be doing that's a pathway that would be available. Now, going back to kind of the pathway in any one of these particular areas. So let's say community instructor. In all cases, there is some fencing specific workshops that you have to do. There are some multi-sport modules, and those are developed by the Coaching Association of Canada. And the way fencing has done this is they select specific multi-sport modules that they think are going to be best for community instructor. And then I think, I'm not 100% sure of this, but I think it says 3 multi-sport modules for community instructor, whereas if you go down to the competitive competition development coach, you've got 11 multi-sport modules. So there's much more when you're getting into competition coaching, there's much more multi-sport theory that we're requiring you to have as background for your fencing specific knowledge and skills. So you've got your NCCP fencing specific training. And in just over the past year, we've introduced what we call a fencing foundations workshop that prior to 2020, this workshop did not exist. So it's a new workshop that really just gives any new coaches who have not gone into the certification program at all, just a general background on national coaching certification, the structure of the programs, and some basic information about values-based leadership, basic information about program planning, those kinds of things. So that is required for whatever pathway you decide you want to follow. You would need to do the foundations workshop and then the fencing specific workshop for your pathway. So the community instructor workshop, if that's the pathway you've chosen, or the competition introduction workshop, if that's the pathway you've chosen. Then you need to do the multi-sport modules. And once there's no designated not pathway time frame. You can take all the time that you want to get yourself to the point where you think that you're ready to be evaluated, but you do have to go through a formal evaluation process before you get certified. And the evaluation process in general is similar in all the stages, but some are not at stages in the pathways, but some of the pathways you have to have greater detail in your program planning, when you're assessed on a larger number of evaluation it's evidence-based. So the evaluation, they look at exactly what you're doing in your coaching. You have to be seen either in a video or in person coaching a group of fencers and doing individual lessons. The individual lessons are not required for community instructor, but you have to be seen doing these lessons, group and individual. In the case of Comp Dev, you actually have to be evaluated as a competition coach, so in a competitive setting. So, and the evaluation process requires you to submit information to an evaluator before you even get looked at. So you submit your overall profile, which is, where you're coaching, the level of fencers that you're coaching, all those kinds of things. So it's just a form you fill out. You have to submit your lesson plans. You have to have completed the Make Ethical Decisions module, which is a CAC module. So, and you have to present all this information. So you submit it to the evaluator. The evaluator will look it over to make sure it's complete. And then the evaluator will actually meet with you either online or in person to help you understand what the evaluation process is actually going to look at, so that you're comfortable with the process, and any questions that you have about the process, you can take care of that in the pre-brief meeting. Then the formal evaluation will take place. And then you meet back with your evaluator to exchange, like, how did you feel about how you did in your lesson presentation. And then the evaluator will talk with you, and you'll talk about what kinds of things that you'll need to do to improve. So that's called an action plan. So that's all part of the evaluation. So it's fairly extensive, but it's really meant to be, rather than a pass or fail, it's meant to have people look at, okay, my evaluator is showing me where my strengths are, where maybe I have a few weaknesses that I can continue to work on, and the evaluator will give you some ideas of the kinds of things that you can do to be more skilled in particular areas. If the evaluator feels that you've really shown that you really understand, and not so much understand, but can deliver your group lesson or individual lesson well, then you will be submitted for certification. So essentially, that's kind of the overall process. I'm just thinking, are there any questions at this point about that pathway where you pick a context or a particular pathway that you feel is appropriate to your interests and the athletes that you're doing? You take some fencing specific training plus the foundations workshop. You do some multi-sport training, and most of the multi-sport modules, a lot of them are delivered online now, so you don't have to travel anywhere. When I took my coaching education, I had to travel to Montreal or Ottawa or somewhere else to get my education. I couldn't get it where I lived. So the access to online education is much stronger now. And then the evaluation process, and then certification. So any questions at this point?
Barb, I just have one in regards to foundations workshop.
Mhm.
Right now, we know it's CFF directed, and that it's the CFF that sort of plans it and determines when it will happen. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
There has only been, I think the foundations workshop has been piloted twice now. And so we're just wrapping up all the actual written materials that are associated with the foundations workshop, and it still has not been translated into French. Once that's done, a province can say, we would like to host a foundations workshop. But because it's done online, it's a 6-hour online workshop, the national committee would probably like to encourage that we could focus on one province. So let's say BC said, we'd really like to have the foundations course for BC coaches. And we would set a maximum number of people to take it. And if BC didn't fill the maximum number, we would want to open it up for other people, because since it's online, anybody can essentially join. But a province can instigate having a particular workshop. Does that answer your question, Lynn?
Oh yeah, no, that's That's good. And I guess the part B to that would be, is there are there plans in the future to have this as an online accessible course for, you know, at any time, like a stop and go kind of course that similar to what Safe Sport would be?
We don't have plans in the works right now for that. So you're thinking of the e-learning where you kind of do it on your own time? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, that this can be accessed by any coach at any time in preparation for the rest of the multi-sport modules that they have to do. That it would, in a sense, become a part of the multi-sport modules that coaches would have to complete.
Right. At this point, that will probably not happen for at least a couple of years, and there isn't any plan in the works to do that, because the current design of the Foundations workshop is for interaction with other coaches. And if you're going to do an e-learning where you can do it on your own, then the whole platform for providing e-learning is different than what we have right now. So all I could say is that that's going to be down the road if in fact we choose to do that. But there's been no decision made on going to an e-learning platform for the Foundations course. So it would have to be done. The coaches would have to access it when the course is being offered.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess part C of that is just confirmation as to coaches who need to take the Coaches Foundations. Is that an absolute mandatory course that coaches who sort of know that they want to do comp dev or comp in, like they know they've been fencers in the past, do they have to absolutely take that Foundations workshop?
Yes, at this point, yes. But they can, at this point, because we're still in the process of getting everything streamlined, if some, like there are going to be some coaches who are going to take the comp dev workshop in Alberta in this August that will not have had the Foundations. So they will at some point have to do the Foundations workshop to finalize their certification.
Okay, thanks, Barb. Thanks.
When was the course in August?
The course in August runs over 2 weekends of in-person work and 6 hours of online training prior to. So just let me jump up and see my calendar here. I should know these dates off by heart. So the online portion of the Comp Dev will take place on the weekend of August 6th and 7th. And I'm meeting with the lead LF on Monday to finalize the actual hours of that. But so there'll be 6 hours online on the weekend of August 6th, 7th. And then there will be 15 hours, or sorry, yeah, 15 hours. No, sorry, 12 hours on Saturday and Sunday in person at the Epic Club in Calgary on the 13th and 14th of August, and again on the 20th and 21st of August. So it's pretty intensive. People who are traveling from outside Alberta, we're trying to help see if we can get either an Airbnb where more than one coach can kind of share the costs, or if we can find local people to help billet them, that kind of thing, because the intervening week between those 2 weekends, there is a training camp at Epic Club, and coaches who are taking the Comp Dev could use that week if they wished. It's not required, but they could go to the camp and practice some of the, lesson giving and those kinds of things at the camp during the week. In between the 2 weekend in-person workshops. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Do we know when the next Foundations workshop and competition intro workshops will be available?
Okay, this is a good lead into, I should have shared a bit more information, so I'll do this now. As I suggested with Lynn as well, we now have an NCCP provincial representative in every province across the country. We don't have them in the territories yet, but we're working on that. And so if whatever province you are looking for support for your coaching, you should go to your provincial representative, and I can let you know that, or you can just email me at another time. I can tell you the name and email. We will have this up on the website. It's not on the CFF's website right now because we're revising the website. But anyway, so you go to your province, and the provinces are able to decide when they want to offer one. So what I can tell you right now is Alberta and BC have both indicated. Well, Alberta definitely has given me even some proposed dates, I think, for the foundations course that they want to host in early October. I'm thinking October 8th, but that's just off the top of my head. I can't tell you for sure. But so this fall, there will be an opportunity to do the foundations course in English, hosted by Alberta. And the Alberta is also aiming to do a Comp Int course in, I think, late October and into November. So we haven't finalized the dates on that, but I'm discussing this with Maya Rathwell, who's the ED in Alberta, and working with the NCCP rep, Ilya Parrott, to finalize the Alberta stuff. So the big thing is that if you are in a province where you haven't heard that anything is happening, it's important for you to find out who your NCCP rep is so that they know that somebody in their province is looking for some training, and talk to any other potential participants because if there's enough participants in any given province, then that's the kind of pressure on the province to make a plan to host one of these workshops. So again, the workshops are not planned from the national, they're planned at the provincial level, but the national will support as best we can the provincial efforts.
Okay, thank you. And I'm assuming you will need your workshops done before you ask for an evaluation?
Yes, you will have to completed all your training. So in the coach certification process, you start off when you've just taken your first, let's say the foundations course, you're considered in training, and you stay in training until you've completed all the various modules and workshops, and then you're considered trained. And then you choose in your own time when you want to be evaluated.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Are there any other questions?
Barb, I have a couple questions, just wondering just some general pieces on, you answered one of my first questions was being able to take courses from other provinces if their province doesn't offer them. So that's really great to hear that hopefully there'll be other spots that are available if they're empty. And then I'm also wondering about the coach developer and evaluator pathway, if that's being developed, or how very experienced coaches or people who want to give back to the community can then get onto that pathway. Right. Okay. As soon as you ask that question, my mind turns immediately to Maureen Griffith and Lynn Seguin. Because, you know, when you're an experienced coach, and I think we desperately need more coaches who are interested in sharing their knowledge with other coaches, that they consider becoming a learning facilitator or an evaluator or both. And there is a designated pathway as well for that's designated by the Coaching Association of Canada. So that pathway for and any of you who know of other people in your province who you think would really be good as learning facilitators or evaluators, please indicate that to your provincial rep, because we're looking for more people. We just absolutely do not have enough learning facilitators and evaluators available. So that's why the processes or the courses are going to be not as quickly out available as they would be if we had more. So the process would be, you are required to take what's called core evaluator training or core LF training, learning facilitator training. And that's a 6-hour online
course for all sports that's given by the Coaching Association of Canada. And that you have to do first. And then you would choose, let's say you're thinking, well, I think I'd like to start by being a learning facilitator for instructor beginner. And then you would work with a current learning facilitator in that context, so in instructor beginner, and you would get some fencing specific training related to being a learning facilitator in that area. That training usually would be again done all online, so you don't have to do any in-person work for this. And then you would need to co-facilitate or co-evaluate with another experienced evaluator or LF. So that way you're always working with somebody else who can mentor you along the way in terms of becoming an LF or an evaluator.
Okay, great. And so the people are interested in going down that pathway, who do they contact?
They should first contact their provincial NCCP rep. And those people have already been asked by our committee, to submit any names at any time of people who they know are interested and that they would like to recommend. Now, there could be some situations where somebody perhaps is even new to the country or whatever, but has a lot of background experience that wants to get involved. And we're always open to people just contacting us directly. But if you are in a province, we would like you to also make sure that you start building connections with your NCCP rep in your province and letting them know that either you, or if you have another recommendation, if you know somebody who you think would be really good as an LF or an evaluator, that you submit those names, and then we would contact them to help them access their training.
Okay, great. And I guess this touches on a little bit of what you had said, people are new to the country, or maybe people who have been coaches for a long time in a previous model, like when they had level 1, 2, 3, etc. How does that work? Do they maintain the same pathway? Do they get grandfathered in? What's the process for them?
I think certainly from the point of view, I guess, of myself and a few other people that I've talked about, I went through the level 1, 2, 3 program as well. And, my personal feeling is, with wanting to keep up to date on the most recent ways of doing things and the most recent or the most current approaches to coaching education, I would say that we would encourage everybody, even if you've been in the old model, to consider either just going straight to an evaluation process to check out that you are still current with your knowledge. And there isn't any grandfathering anymore, I don't believe. I think they went through a process where they did make some equivalencies, and if you have an NCCP number, which is related to, which is available through the Coaching Association of Canada, then you can check what your status is. So for instance, let's say 15 years ago, you did a level 2 course or level 1 and level 2 course. You can go to your locker, and that information, no certifications that you've done, even in the old system, are ever removed, but they may be translated into the current system. But I think at this point in time, and I'm not 100% sure of this, but I think at this time, there's no further acceptance of old certification and putting it into the new certifications. So it's very individual. So if people are unsure of how, of what their status is because they did their training many years ago, that would be something that we would look at individually. The other situation that some people or some people that might be in is coming from another country and having certification from another country. So there's no system that allows us to take, so somebody shows up with a diploma from the Maître d'Armes de France, for instance, let's say they have a diploma there. We cannot just, there's no way to equivocate what has been done in another country. But any coach that arrives in Canada and feels that they have strong knowledge and they just need to review the evaluation criteria and they can apply directly for evaluation. They don't need to go through all the workshops, other than, I think it's the Make Ethical Decisions is required and Safe Sport is required. But other than that, it's very minimal requirements, and you can go directly to the evaluation process. And if you pass the evaluation process, then you can get certified. So the workshops are not always applicable if people have extensive training in another country.
Oh, great. Is it something maybe in the future, or maybe something that's currently being developed for like continuing education courses within the CFF for those who have already reached their desired level?
Yes, actually, if I guess, see, I haven't stopped sharing that screen, have I? I guess I can stop sharing now. But right at the top right-hand corner, you see where it has a little logo and says lifelong learning. So, and I will stop sharing this now. So one of the things that we do try to promote is that that there's just always something new to learn, and everybody has something to share. I mean, I probably learn more from my fencers than they learn from me. Sometimes I think that. So we just really encourage everybody to find things that interest them, that they think will broaden their coaching knowledge and help them to be more effective. And it could be, you know, a course that you go to in another country. It could be it could be not non-NCCP or non-coaching association opportunities that can be credited to you as part of your lifelong learning. And once you are certified, there is a process called maintenance of certification, where anything that you do to continue to build your skills, you can get what we call professional development points. And so, for instance, something as basic as if you've coached this past year, that's automatically worth 1 professional development point for you. And every 5 years, a community instructor or an instructor beginner needs to get 5 professional development points. And it could be taking a module through the CAC, or it could be going out of the country to a workshop. But you do have to, there's a sort of some administrative work that you have to do to report training, and you should be reporting it in advance. So if I decided to go to a coaching workshop in Poland, for instance, I would put this information into the locker area for professional development, and I could get points assigned to me for doing something that's not related directly to the Coaching Association of Canada or the National Coaching Certification Program. It could be even something, you know, in your local community that is related to coaching that you take that's not specifically recognized. Then our association has to, you know, sort of get the details and approve it as a professional development opportunity. But it can be very individualized. It doesn't have to be a specific designated or pre-designated module through Coaching Association. It can be a lot of different things.
Okay. And what would you tell coaches who are looking for funding opportunities to help support them to take courses?
Well, one of the things that we're going to be doing at the upcoming AGM, we're going to be recommending to all the provinces that if they haven't already started to budget for supporting coaching development, that they start to have an annual budget, because the amount of money that it takes to be paying the learning the learning facilitators and evaluators in our program are paid to do it. And so in order to be able to fund that, when we run an in-person workshop, we have to pay the rental costs of a gym, all of those kinds of things. So that the kinds of costs that it involves is often above what many coaches can pay, especially people who are doing coaching voluntarily, or just coaching once or twice a week and not getting sufficient money that they can actually put it in the bank to do their coaching education. So there are already some provinces. So for instance, we recently ran a Compient workshop here in New Brunswick, and the New Brunswick Fencing Association paid completely for all of the training that was needed by the coaches that attended. I know in Alberta, they're hoping to subsidize the Comp Dev, the Alberta coaches that are going to do the Comp Dev course. And we're hoping to promote across all the provinces that they start to set aside money to at least partially subsidize coaching development, because we know that in the end, I mean, it's partially for the coaches, but the people who really benefit are the fencers. And so if we want to build fencing in Canada, we have to have support for people who want to, gain greater skills and knowledge around effective coaching, being a good coach.
For sure. And so is there also, or are there also resources for coaches who are looking to start a club? Where should they go for information on how to do that?
We know that we need to develop a module that would be not linked directly with any coaching pathway, but a general module around starting a club. We don't have that information. I've got lots of information in my head about it. and so I'm actually very interested in developing a module. It would just be an online module to help people, because there's many different ways to start clubs as well. I'm sure that some of Lynn and Maureen perhaps would also be able to contribute information about this. But currently we do not have a set piece around developing a club, but we know that it's needed. There's just becoming a coach and then wanting to start a club and thinking, oh my goodness, this is just a whole other area of knowledge that is not currently involved in our in the current set of modules that we have. So we do want to develop it. We don't have a timeline right now. And so any of you who want to work on that, you can certainly volunteer. I'd be happy to work with you on creating a module about starting up a club.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Barbara.
I don't think that there's a whole lot else that I really had to provide to people. We've talked about, choosing a pathway, having to go through the pathway to become certified, going through your province to your provincial NCCP rep to find out about or promote or encourage them to offer your various workshops, working on your own professional development beyond the set certification, becoming a learning facilitator or evaluator if you're interested. There's a lot of resources available, like the Coaching Association of Canada. In addition to the set multi-sport theory pieces, they've done a huge amount of development of e-learning modules that are things that you do at your own pace. You can start the module and do an hour on it and then decide, okay, I've had enough for today, and you go back when you're ready. So these e-learning modules with a really wide variety of topics. Recently they brought out one related to racism. They have e-learning related to working with athletes with a disability. There's just so many different ways to increase your learning. So Women in Coaching CAC from Lynn is suggesting, yeah, so there's there are just so many different resources out there. I would say, check out the Coaching Association of Canada to see what e-learning modules might interest you as additional to our set piece in terms of certification. There's something called the Sport Information Resource Center, which is Canadian and which has all sorts of huge amount of resources for that. There's sport and law, which is if you have any questions around legal aspects in terms of coaching, then you can check out them. They have lots of really interesting information, blogs, and they do webinars. So there's, all of these groups do webinars from time to time. The Sport for Life Society, they have all sorts of information. A really good, most recently, a really good checklist about quality, developing quality community clubs. So it's focused on the community club rather than sort of national team level, right at the community level. They have a really good resource, like a checklist for quality sport in your community or in your club. So those are all really good resources. And I'm sure many of you have more. Maureen is saying if you sign up at the locker, many of the online courses are free. Thanks, Maureen, for letting us know. So there are lots and lots of things you kind of do have to do a little searching to find some of these things. But the CAC has, make sure that if you haven't already signed up to get your national certification NCCP number, which allows you to go into the locker, which is, you have to have an NCCP number to be able to get into what they call the coach's locker on the CAC website. And that keeps track of all your training and your certifications and any professional development that you do. It's all tracked in the locker. So if you're not already linked up with NCCP, have an NCCP number, then I would recommend that you do that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Daria, I'm not sure that we need to prolong this. It's getting hot. I don't have any air conditioning in my house and I'm perspiring right now.
No problem. Thank you so much. And I'll stop the recording right now.
Okay.